So we'll go through with the welcome address, which I'm currently doing. We'll have a brief administrative directive. Then we'll welcome Madam President to give us an opening remark. The speaker will be introduced by the CEO, the presentation by the speaker. We'll have a Q&A session. Then we'll have the closing remark. And at 2:30, we'll bring the session to a close. So the admin directive. So because this session is a virtual session, we kindly ask that you mute your microphone, and let's help to keep the background noise to minimum. Ensure that you keep your microphone muted when you are not speaking. So this session, because it will be interactive, there will be times when somebody might want to speak, ask a question in the course of the presentation. So at that point, we ask that you try as much as possible to minimize your background noise when you are speaking. In case you want to put your camera on, please kindly position your camera properly. And let's try as much as possible to limit distraction in the course of the presentation or the section. In case you're not able to speak, you can leave your comments in the chat and it will be read accordingly. So any question that you have, can leave it in the chat and we'll read it. We ask that you follow us on our social media handles. That is YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and our Telegram pages. In the course of the session, if you need any assistance or any further information, kindly contact the Secretariat on +233 302 73 2269 or +233 240 714 798 or by email info@iodghana.org. So on this note, my name is Alessia Kujo, the acting head of operations of IoD-Ghana. So I humbly invite the president of IoD-Ghana in the person of Reverend Mrs. Angela Kamenapia to give us the opening remarks. Madam, please.
Thank you very much, Celestia. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. A good afternoon to each of us. So, I am very happy, privileged, honored to be giving the opening remarks for this special conversation. I'd like to say welcome to our council members who have joined the call, to our members, fellows, associates, corporate members, to our stakeholders, to our loved ones, friends, well-wishers, anybody on the call. I noticed there are 49 of us on the call. I'm very happy you made it for this special conversation. It is very vital that we discuss improving our mental health through emotional self-care. And this, I believe, is a critical leadership imperative. As directors, managers, CEOs, business leaders, potential ones and active ones, I know you carry a lot of responsibilities, and these responsibilities are not just for the successes of your organizations, but for the well-being of the teams in which you work and the stakeholders who depend on your ability to deliver and also who count on your resilience. However, in the relentless pursuit for excellence, One critical aspect is often neglected, and that is our own emotional and mental health. And it is for that reason that I am very happy that Daniela has offered to do this for us. The pressure to perform, the weight of decision-making, and the constant demand for leadership, especially in high-performing teams, can take a silent toll on each of us. Emotional self-care is therefore not an indulgence. It is a strategic necessity. When we prioritize our mental well-being, we lead with clarity, empathy, and sustainability. Knee-jerk approaches will not happen. Firefights will not happen. And even when they rear their ugly heads, we can nip them in the bud. Today, we will explore practical tools, share experiences as we usually do, and challenge the stigma that often surrounds mental health in high-performance environments. Today's conversation is more than a discussion. It is a wake-up call for some of us as we strive to build healthier workplaces. We must first nurture ourselves. I therefore encourage all of you to engage openly, listen actively, and live with actionable strategies to integrate emotional self-care, not just as a box-ticking activity, but as a strategic intervention, deliberately, intentionally, in our leadership journeys. Thank you for being here. Let us enjoy the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President, for such insightful opening remarks. So on behalf of the CEO, I would like to introduce our speaker for this afternoon's seminar. She's in the person of Daniela Nicol. She's an experienced group facilitator and a psychotherapist and a long-term resident in Ghana. She offers one-to-one therapy as well as group therapy and regularly delivers a range self-care empowerment workshops. That's a brief background of our facilitator for this afternoon seminar. So without much ado, I welcome Daniela Nicol to take over the session.
Hello.
Yes,
Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, ma, we can hear you, we can see you.
Wonderful.
So please take over the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, just like to thank you for this opportunity, and thank you, Madam President, for those great opening remarks. For sure, mental health, could do with a bit of putting in the center of our intentional self-care. It will enhance our productivity, it will enhance our performance, it will enhance our leadership skills, as each one of these things feed into our emotional intelligence. We feel that, you are probably well aware of emotional intelligence and all the things that constitute emotional intelligence. Today will be about improving our mental health so that we can actually have higher emotional intelligence, which is essential in modern leadership. So I'm Daniela Nicol. I'm British. I'm a psychotherapist and a long-term resident in Ghana, the UK, and Austria. After training as a therapist in the UK, I relocated back to Ghana in 2018 and now provide ongoing therapy services as well as these capacity building workshops through my company Mind Matters. So today's workshop is about understanding the value of self-care for our mental health and also for our emotional well-being. We won't look at it in isolation because we will also look about what could be impacting negatively our emotional household, and we'll be looking at tools at how to enhance that. And I would just like to say that I may have knowledge about how to do these things, but we also learn from each other. And so every one of you and your contributions will make this workshop as beneficial and fun as it can be. There are some interactive elements that you are invited to engage in, share your thoughts and feelings, and hopefully together we will create a space where you can all feel safe enough to do that. So on that note, I would like to start with my presentation. One moment, please. I hope you can all see this. Celestial, could you
Yes,
perhaps
please.
okay, wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
We've done a dry run. She was great, so I'm very confident about our technical stuff right now. So in terms of creating a safe environment, perhaps we could have a bit of a group agreement. I know Celestial has already described how we should be handling our phones and things, our microphones and our cameras. But I would just like to add that perhaps in order to create that safe environment, we be non-judgmental to each other and together create an environment where we feel safe to share. We leave our microphones on mute when we're not speaking to avoid disruptions from background noises. And if you could perhaps put phones on silent or on vibrate, just so that again we are keeping the disruptions to a minimum. So moving on, I would like to look at our objectives for today. So it's about recognizing our emotional burdens, as I mentioned. How can we, really self-care without looking at what could be stopping us from having good well-being? Understand good and bad stress. Learn 15 things to do for our self-care. And practice one relaxation exercise. It will be a mindfulness exercise. Some of you may have heard of this relaxation technique before. It's a very effective tool to use, and we will practice that together at the end of the session. So, as some of us might associate self-care with a bath and scented candles or getting a pedicure, all those things are nice to do, but they tend to be a bit short-term. So with emotional self-care, we take a look at how to reduce our emotional burdens, enhance our well-being for it to be more long-term and effective. So as one of the biggest emotional burdens we usually have, and also the cause for a lot of our mental health issues, is stress overload. And you being leaders will, inevitably be exposed to a lot of stress. We may not be able to do anything about the stress, but we can do something about how we manage that. So no matter how much self-care we do, if we're not looking at, how to manage the stress that bears on us on a daily basis, we can probably, not attain inner peace or inner equilibrium. So it's actually quite helpful to get a good understanding of stress, why we experience it, and when it becomes unhealthy. So how does stress work? It's not a bad thing. It actually is very important to help us with our survival. In a challenging situation, stress is activated and it triggers emotions such as fear or anger. Again, both of these emotions are very important for our survival. They help us run away from a danger or fight it. As stress is triggered, the body starts producing very powerful hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol. Those are only two, there are more, that give us extra strength. So this is either, as I said, to either run away or fight the threat. And these powerful hormones are the ones that give us strength to do that. So when we feel under threat, stress is activated. It activates our survival responses, the fight, flight, and freeze. Some of you may have heard of that. So now let's have a look at what actually happens in the body when stress hits. A challenging task presents itself. Either we're being chased by an animal, we've got a presentation like today, an exam, or somebody close to us is hurt. Stress hormones are produced to give us the extra abilities to overcome these situations. It gives us extra strength, extra focus, and it just provides us with the ability to overcome adverse situations. Once the task is accomplished, stress reduces and stress hormone production stops. So, question, has anybody experienced these situations and felt stressed in them? This is a question to all. Your contributions are welcome. If you'd like to say something, perhaps Celestial will be handling the hands up and the chats. So perhaps you'd like to share. Have you experienced a time where you realized, what, I overcame that situation. I felt stressed, but it actually helped me. Okay, moving on. As I said, if you'd like to say anything, please just let us know. So when we say help can stress us, why can it go bad? And it is when it becomes chronic. It becomes chronic when we are stressed over long periods of time. So this means we don't just have that momentary stress when we have a challenging situation, and when it's over, all the hormone production stops. When we're stressed over long periods of time without it abating, these powerful hormones continue to be produced, are always in our blood. As you can imagine, having these powerful chemicals in your body all the time can be very unhealthy. It can also cause eventually heart problems as adrenaline gets the heart pumping really fast. Cortisol is the one that gives us strength. It steals the energy from everywhere. So if it's always in the blood, we can actually start to feel quite tired because it's just stealing it from everywhere it can, because it shouldn't really be there. So when we get stuck in fear or anger for long periods of time, it can lead to these mental health disorders such as anxiety and depression. And so we'll now have a quick look at what that actually looks like. We start to feel and behave in unhealthy ways when we're stressed continuously. And when I say continuously, let's say over a period of 6 weeks upwards, that will definitely start to be noticeable in terms of how we feel and therefore also how we behave. So what types of feelings would we have? Fear and anxiety, because that's being triggered. Neglect, loneliness, feeling low, a sense of dread. What's going to happen? Something bad's going to happen. It just hangs around for no apparent reason. We can feel agitated, finding it difficult to sit still. This is the adrenaline. Low energy. As I mentioned, the cortisol will be just a thief, an energy thief. And just feeling unworthy. as a result of just feeling unwell. And so what kind of behaviors would be associated with these emotions would be irritability and impatience, being indecisive, finding it difficult because we have self-doubt. We become forgetful, it becomes difficult to focus. We avoid others, we become socially withdrawn. That's a very bad sign for us humans. We are social beings. And so, avoiding others is always a telltale sign that we're not in a great place. Being unfocused, it's difficult to focus on anything when we have all these feelings going on in the background. We might not be feeling the whole list, but some of them, and they're quite powerful. We become highly risk averse, which means that we find it very difficult to make a decision on a new, going down a new route, or ideas are shut down because there's a possible risk. We focus overly on the risk rather than on the benefit of a decision or an idea. I'm unable to sleep. This is a big one. Sleep is a very restorative process, a process where a lot of regeneration occurs in the body. And when we don't have consistent deep sleep, it feeds these feelings of, feeling low, neglect, fear, anxiety, because we don't have the resilience to withstand the daily stresses. So again, question out to the group, does any of this look familiar? Particularly the behavior. Have you yourself experienced this or seen it in others? Yes, please, Agnes.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for this. I mean, I've seen this behavior in a lot of others, but what I found interesting was your comments of the fact that anxiety and all these things comes as a result of chronic stress, and then you start to see this. So it doesn't just happen. Initially, I thought that people are just prone to being anxious or depressive type of personalities. I didn't realize that it is a buildup of a certain chronic situation. So the other thing was about the sleep. But then I've also seen others too who are dealing with all this, but then also oversleep, like they just want to spend the whole day in bed. I don't know what you have to say about that one as well.
Yes. Thank you so much, Agnes. I think there's a very, very pertinent observation there. Most of our ailments, even physical ones, they very rarely just come upon us, it's a build-up. It's a steady build-up, and it becomes quite a loop then as well, because the more we have these emotions and feelings hanging around, the less we feel that we're able to get ourselves out of it, and then it becomes almost like a vicious cycle. So people are not born irritable and impatient. They might have a predisposition, maybe, people might have a predisposition to be more calm. Mothers might, more kind of energetic. But these things are as a result of bad mental health and chronic stress, which can come, and we will have a look at emotional stresses in a minute. These can come from a range of sources. This is not only at work. This can be from unresolved trauma. As I said, we will have a look at a slide with those things. Childhood trauma is a very, very typical one when we have unresolved childhood trauma, which is caused by perhaps experiences in childhood that were very difficult, without getting necessarily emotional support from our caregivers. Being abused, emotionally neglected, stuff like that makes us feel very unsafe as children, and we have nowhere to go to get help. And so with that sort of internalized fear about how do I survive in the world, I don't feel safe, it can manifest itself as chronic stress. This is the most typical place to as a source of chronic stress. But obviously also at workplaces, where you have a lot of just one after another. things hitting you that are stressful. Thank you about the observation about the sleep. That's very true, because sleep is just disturbed, right? It's either you can't sleep or you sleep too much. It's not in the right place, and that's because of this imbalance. I think I saw somebody put their hand up, or
No,
oh,
Agnes was giving a thumbs up and said thank you for the
thumbs up.
explanation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Right, is anybody else got some thoughts on this? Yes, Sarah.
Yes, I think I personally, hello.
Hi, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I think I personally have experienced it. And it got so was that I became impatient and I was very, very irritable. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, because that's, even sometimes you realize you're doing that, but you don't want to, but it's just almost impossible to soothe yourself, right?
Yes.
Exactly. So this is why I wanted to bring this to our attention, so that we understand that, when we get to this point, there are certain things we need to do in order for it to go away. Thank you for that, Sarah.
Thank you.
Joseph, sorry, Alonso.
Yes,
Hi.
yes, please. Okay. Yes, I would want to find out, sorry, is it quite prevalent in women as compared to men? Because these things, what you are treating, I see them, in women a lot as compared to men, even at workplaces and then in the houses. So, I want to find out, um what's the correlation between men and women when it comes to chronic mental stress? I really want to find out, because it's and even at workplaces you can clearly see sometimes the women, they are down, sometimes they are this, they have a lot of things, they end up relating it to the fact that they are women, and sometimes they switch mood swings and all those kind of things. So please, among men and women, I want to know, is it prevalent among one, or can it be some hormonal imbalances or stuff? I really want to know much about it. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing up that topic. I would say that's an interesting one. So just to say off the bat, we as humans are equipped equally, men and women, with the same emotions, the same functions as I showed before. Men and women experience exactly the same things. That women have times in the month where they're hormonally challenged. This might make it more difficult to maybe control irritability and impatience, but ultimately men experience exactly the same thing. What I think may happen is when you do see women expressing their emotion more, showing it more, is because of societal pressures that men feel that they cannot show that stuff. When a man shows vulnerability, often a man is considered to be weak. And this is worldwide, by the way. So men tend to be more reluctant to show how they really feel. And, this leads to very disturbing statistics in terms of suicide. 75% of all suicides worldwide are men. So 3/4 of all suicides in the world are men, because men feel it much more difficult to open up and talk about how they're feeling. I know from my practice, my therapy practice, 90% of my clients are women. So I work with men as well, and they have exactly the same issues and childhood traumas. They are impacted exactly the same way. It's just the outlet perhaps isn't there, because societally we have these conceptions that or perceptions that a man has to always show he's strong and he cannot show that he's not in a great place and he's vulnerable and he's, indecisive, or, some of these things. So to your question, women and men have exactly the same emotional household. It's just how is it expressed? I hope that answers your question.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Right. Well, thank you so much for that. I'm just thinking to move on, unless somebody has anything else to say. Happy to hear anything else. Okay, moving on. So now we're going to have a look at the types of stresses affecting us daily. I think physical stresses are things that are we're quite aware of because they're very visible, so we have that 24/7 working culture now with the phones, and people on holiday are still working and they're on their phone. They're at home at 10 o'clock at night, they're on their phone. And so this means that we're working almost all the time. That's a big stress. Working to constant deadlines. I think Madam President mentioned that, about how there's these really, really high level stresses that come at us. And when we're in business, we often need to work towards deadlines. And no matter how well we handle that, it is still stressful. And those stress is good to help us be more competent and more able to handle things when there's that tipping point where it becomes too much, and when we get stuck in that stress and we're just stressed all the time. Parenting was another very, very physical job, really, as well. Having to constantly, especially when the children are small, whether it's men or women, parenting is challenging. And that's definitely 24/7. Physically demanding tasks, care work, construction, sports instructors, all of this will cause physical stress. And the brain does not distinguish between an emotional stress and a physical stress. Stress is stress. So bear that in mind when you're going to the gym, you've had a busy day.
We cannot
Sorry?
see the slide moving.
I'm coming to the slide. I'm coming to the slide. Sorry. You will receive a copy of this presentation. So, emotional stresses are often less obvious than physical and mental stresses, as they are internal and not visible, but nonetheless have a very strong impact on our well-being. I mean, any idea what emotional stresses could be that are not physical? What could be a stress that's bearing on us that's not something that the stuff I mentioned before, that's visible, and I'm doing this, so I know that this is leading to that. And no wrong or right answers. Okay, nobody wants to dare, that's fine. Let's go into it. So one of the top ones is relationship issues, right? When we have problems in relationships, particularly with key people in our lives, like parents, siblings, partners, children, colleagues, bosses, these are relationships crucial to our sense of feeling safe and loved. If they're not working properly, it will increase our emotional stresses because of the lack of feeling safe, the pain maybe of not being on good terms with these key people in our lives. That will be working in the background all the time if that's not resolved. Just for us to be aware of that. The next one is one that's maybe also not so obvious. Now, perfectionism, I think for a long time we thought being perfect is actually something we want to achieve, because who wouldn't want to deliver at a high standard? So we're not saying that we shouldn't strive to excellence, but what perfectionism is unattainable in this life, and therefore we are setting ourselves up for failure. it's very difficult to get a sense of accomplishment when whatever we deliver, even if it's at a high level, yeah, I could have done better. You know, it wasn't good enough. I could have done better. So it could be coming from a sense of I need to be really good at something to earn my worthiness. Often this is also takes place in childhood where we get the messages from our caregivers that, you know, being parents or whoever's looking after us, that unless we are good at school, unless we're obedient, unless we're dressed prettily, unless we are doing whatever, we won't really be lovable. We won't be worthy. And yet we are worthy of love. We are worthy because we are, and full stop. So just to also bring that onto your radars is that perfectionism is harmful because it doesn't stop pushing you to higher standards, even though it is already taking a toll on your mental and possibly physical health. Striving for excellence stops at some point. It's like, I really want to deliver at a high level, but not at the cost of my health. So the next one, being bullied or abused causes strong negative feelings such as shame, you know, and feeling disempowered. You don't have the power. You feel unsafe. Again, we come to that word unsafe. It can happen at home. It can happen, you know, from parents maybe early on or even now, at school by teachers, classmates, at work by boss and colleagues. We can be bullied, you know, and over time it causes that our self-esteem to be impacted. We feel less about ourselves. We feel that we're not that worthy, because why would we be being bullied? Why we're taking the messages that the bully is or their abuser is sending us is that you're not good enough. You're not good enough. And we can take that on board. And that causes a range of unhealthy emotions such as shame and guilt. Unprocessed emotions from traumatic events such as accidents, bereavements, but also, as I mentioned before, childhood trauma. These are traumatic experiences where we didn't get the required or the necessary emotional support at that time. You know, we've had an accident, or let's say a bereavement. It was somebody we really loved. And then at some point, after a month or two, people are like, well, come on, get over it. You know, it's 2 months already. What's your problem? But grief can go on for a long time. And if we have no outlet for it and we don't get the emotional support, this will be working away in the background. Unprocessed trauma is one of the biggest things that impacts our mental health in terms of being almost sort of right in the background. So, you know, any thoughts on this? Anybody identify or see, you know, this could be impacting them?
Hello, Abraham, please go for it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Daniela. Thanks for the presentation so far. So I'm imagining, how do you identify these emotional stresses? Because sometimes you're working, you feel stressed, but probably you don't know. Or if you're a leader of an organization or a board, for instance, and somebody's going through a certain challenge, the person is unable to identify, how do you help the person to be able to ascertain that this is what I'm going through, and so that it will be solved, he or she will be helped?
So if I understand what you're saying, it's how do I recognize the symptoms of, or how do I understand that this is where my stress is coming from?
Yes, absolutely.
Did I? Okay. I think the things that are on the slide right now are things that often run in the background, so that causes us a certain almost daily level of stress, because don't forget, we're talking about chronic stress, right? So it's almost, we don't even know it anymore. We normalize it. It's just what it is. And then when we experience additional stresses, like, you know, tight deadlines or at work, things are kicking off, it's very difficult to absorb that. The reason why I'm showing these things is that we sometimes don't focus on this. We focus on the stuff that's just immediately in the immediacy has triggered the stress right now. But actually, when we have good mental health, we are built for adversity. We are built to be able to absorb stresses that daily life throws at us. But if we're already starting on a back foot with having stuff in either one of these areas impacting us in the background, our ability to absorb stress, any other stresses, is going to be a challenge. How do you help somebody who's stressed? I think that's a whole other area, right? In the end run, you know, stress management. I think we're going to come to some of the suggestions as how to help to reduce stresses. I have a whole workshop on how to help people with mental health issues. So, you know, it would be very much about being, as a leader, this is where the emotional intelligence comes in. As a leader, we're empathic, and we say, okay, rather than why are you not able to do this and why are you becoming stressed by this small thing, you know, we shouldn't be worrying you and all of that. In the end run, that's not going to be helpful. So the thing to say would be, what is going on? How can I help? And preferably in a private setting. Because if somebody's got some stuff going on that's impacting them at work, like maybe they've got a relationship issue, they just had a massive fight with their parents or with their partners, their child might be ill, you know, who knows? That person's not going to tell you that personal stuff if you challenge them in the corridor, and there might be other people around. So not saying you challenge them, but even to just bring up the topic, right? So there's something about how to deal with those situations in the best way. So what's going on? How can I help you? Rather than, oh, snap out of it. It's all in your head. You know, there's a row of quite unhelpful things to say, but being open and saying, look, I'm here to help. How can I help you? Because you as a leader in the end run want to have enhanced productivity, right? And performance. And the human being isn't just that human being standing there in that moment. That human being comes to work with all the stuff, and some of the stuff can be what's on this list. You might not know, but they won't tell you unless they feel safe that it's going to be held. And if they're really not well, I think they should go to therapy and seek emotional support, which is what therapy is. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Great question. Hi, Agnes.
As you can see, I'm very interested in this topic. I've had someone I worked with before who was dealing with bipolar. We didn't know what it was, but one day an excellent worker should come to work, doing extremely well, doing everything she needed to do. And then the very next day she comes and totally uncommunicative, not minding anyone, not doing any work. I mean, it was very confusing. Like at that time, I'd never even heard about the word. Eventually,
Agnes, please, you're
Sorry,
muted.
Agnes. Yeah, your connection's a bit
oh,
bad.
sorry, I went on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I was saying that, so there was a lady I worked with before and doing extremely well, very talented. One day she'll come to work, delivering all her reports, everything is fantastic, her mood, the spirit. The very next day she's completely like uncommunicative, not doing anything, like stay out of my way kind of person. And it was eventually, because we didn't know what it was, eventually she was taken to see I think either a psychologist or a psychiatrist or something. But gradually, I think the organization let her go because people didn't know how to handle it. So I'm very happy you're saying that there are workshops that can help people to manage these situations, because what tends to happen is that if people either just lose their jobs because people don't know how to handle people who are doing very well 1 minute and then not doing very well the next minute. But she did go for a professional assessment, and they found out that she was bipolar. You know, and then they put her on meds and, you know, started her journey over there,
Yeah.
but they had to let her go.
Wow. Well, you know, that's so sad, really, in a way, isn't it? Because if she'd had malaria or something, you know, she would have taken the tablets, and there wouldn't have been a question about it. So mental health is still a bit, you know, how should I say, stigmatized because people just think once you have a mental health issue, you can never become healthy again. Now, having said that, bipolar is one of the very few genetically passed on mental health disorders. So bipolar, as schizophrenia, is something you inherit, you have it genetically, and therefore the treatment is also just lifelong on meds, unfortunately, you know, to suppress the symptoms. She went for help, and she got it, and she was diagnosed, and she received the medication. Then it's actually surprising that the company would have let her go, because did her performance improve? Did she then become okay? Was she then less sort of, you know, mood swingy?
Yeah, so it wasn't, as you know, these things are not immediate. So it didn't, like, she started the medication and everything, but it didn't happen. It was still, you know, was still now kind of getting a bit better, but not like fully there. So it became like, okay, is this a performance issue as well? You know, because it was a gradual, and I think it happened within maybe a month to 2 months that she then kind of finally, you know, had to leave. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's all to do with, you know, how long has the company or an organization, how long are they going to accept that somebody's is not well, just sick leave? You know, they can't fully, if they'd had a, let's say they'd you know, like I said, had a serious physical illness, it can take some time before somebody is fully productive again, right? So I do think that the tolerance for mental health disorders is quite low in our society and certainly in businesses, but not only in Ghana, by the way. You know, this is everywhere, which is why people are very reluctant to often admit that they have a problem and take time off. You know, because time off for mental health issues, because then everybody's like, oh, they're not okay, so they're never going to be okay. We can't rely on them anymore. Let's get rid of them, right? So this is also why I really appreciate that Madam President is allowing me to present this aspect to you, this perspective of mental health to you as leaders, so that you also perhaps start to embrace mental health as a health issue. Bipolar and schizophrenia are not treatable. They need to be treated with medication. And that's only 5% of all mental health disorders are these genetically passed on ones. 95% of our mental health disorders are down to stress, down to how we've experienced stress, down to trauma, down, you know, and trauma is sort of like a kind of not an embodiment of stress, but it kind of like it's a, you know, stress that's sort of in a very tight rope around us. And that's where we need to also perhaps be a bit more flexible and understanding that if we treat it, if we do the right things, if we do enough self-care, we will avoid those things from happening, or we will heal from them. I mean, therapy obviously is a very, very important way to start that journey if we're feeling really bad. Once you kind of got out of the, you know, the dip, you help yourself, you know the things to do to maintain good mental health. Thank you for that, Agnes. Hi, Mary.
Hello. Yes, please. We have a hand up by Madam Mary Asariyabwa, our Vice President.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Daniela,
Hi,
for sharing such great insights. I wanted to share a little experience also. So this was a case that came up. It was a case of child abuse, but somehow was suppressed. And it was at the tertiary level of education that things And so in a facility, one had to handle this particular case. It was affecting the person's steady progress at school and all of that. The good news was that with the kind of, if you like, intervention that was put in
Hello, Madam Mary, please,
place,
we've
the
lost you.
education,
Your
they were
network.
made to understand what our clients, the chance.
Madam Mary, please, we
To
seem to be losing you.
with the studies because it had come to a point where, and because we made the intervention, then she received extension, she started getting the right treatment, and the good news is that now this person is on course to complete the education. So following up and insisting on speaking with authorities and making them aware of what's going on with a particular individual, you get their buy-in and their support so that the individual is helped rather than disposed of. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
I don't know
Madam
if I
Mary.
was
I'm
heard.
afraid we didn't hear very much of that, unfortunately, because the connection was bad, but we heard the conclusion and that it was a good conclusion. I'm very happy to hear that, with interventions, eventually the person got the right help, which is fantastic. Thank you. Sarah Barney, I think. Yes.
Hello. Thank you.
Hi, Sarah.
Thank you once more. Yes, with regards to the fourth type of stress, I think I've experienced it. And that probably could have resulted in the irritability that I had. I was involved in an accident, and in that accident, I'm a parent of 5. The kids are quite young. And in that accident, I lost one of my kids.
Oh,
and I think and like stated, I think the social support systems didn't really help me much. So I now understand why I have that problem. I had that problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. I am so sorry to hear that.
So I'll be one of the things I'm looking for in this presentation is to be able to find ways to go around it, get around it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that, Sarah. It's very brave and, really appreciate your trust. I mean, that's just one of the worst things that can happen to us is losing a child. And if you then don't get so you were in an accident and a bereavement at the same time, and you didn't get the right, the necessarily emotional support, and you sat with the pain and all these powerful feelings on your own, and they will come out, somehow they need to be expressed, they will be expressed. So if you're having that very deeply rooted still, maybe some of these things might not be enough, which is why I would always say seek psychological help. Kolibu is a great psychiatric department. They have a team of psychologists. A Dutch colleague of mine enabled some training there the other day, and she said they are really, really very engaged and enthusiastic, and she would refer clients there. So just to say that, I know I'm a therapist. You can always come and inquire. I'm going to send you my details as well. But, there is support there. And sometimes we need a professional, just like if you broke your arm, if you don't go and get it set, it will heal some way, so maybe you can maybe use it a bit, but you won't be able to put a lot of weight on it. So mental health, it's a health issue. It is no different. So you just might need a bit of help from a professional. Thank you. So I think we've got maybe one more question because otherwise we're going to run out of time. Can we just, Celestial, can you just select one more person? Yeah.
Okay, so let me go for Abraham, then we'll come to Madam Eldora, then you continue, please.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, a quick one, Daniela. What are the statistics saying regarding a link between this chronic emotional stress with dementia and all that? Are they related? Does it have a side effect on, human beings, such that most people get into dementia and Parkinson's, and is there a relation to it?
So I'm going to be very honest. I don't know, but I can tell you that what I do know about dementia is that, again, it's quite hereditary. So if in your family there's dementia, there could be a genetic predisposition to get it as well. Does chronic stress, pave the way? I would say that it certainly won't help. It could actually help to trigger the dementia. It certainly won't be helpful. Alzheimer's, I think, is a bit different, but I'll be very honest, Saber, I'm not that way trained, so I don't have that at my fingertips. But it's likely that if somebody has had a lot of chronic stress, that if they do have that genetic predisposition, it could be triggered. More likely than if somebody who doesn't have that predisposition.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Andera, please go for it.
Okay, so thank you very much, Daniela, and I'm very excited about this presentation. I think it's an eye-opener, particularly about the behaviors that were listed on the previous page that you spoke about. You see, these behaviors normally leads to poor performance, and so if you are not aware of these behaviors and the causes of these behaviors, one is tempted to conclude that an individual is a poor performer or has a very bad conduct. But with this presentation, at least we are able to tell or engage further when we notice such behaviors among our team members. And then we are able to give them the necessary advice or refer them to the appropriate experts to deal with them. And if they recover, they come back and we get better results from them. So thank you very much. And I'm very impressed. I know there are more in store for us. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, that's really also very insightful to be able to understand that, now when we see this behavior, we also understand that it is caused by emotions that are not healthy. So the way that our brain works is that we will have a thought, the thought triggers an emotion, and the emotion triggers behavior. So we don't have behavior without emotion. And so when we see that impatient emotion, and you're very right, it will definitely impact productivity and performance for sure. If you can't focus because your brain is constantly dreading and fearful and working overtime, every conversation, there's a parallel one in the brain. Are they judging me? Am I good? It will impact your team's performance. So if you as an employer or a leader are able to say, okay, let's have a look, there's something wrong with this person. It's not that they're being a horrible person or a bad person. There's something wrong with them. They're not healthy. How can we help them? If you're taking this away from today, I'll be so happy, because I think we sometimes just look at these things in isolation, behavior in isolation. We think this is a angry person, a whatever. We are not born that way. We become that way. So we are born very positive, very confident, full of self-esteem. It's what we experience afterwards that kind of makes things a bit difficult. So thank you very much for that. And thank you for this interactivity. I'm really appreciating your thoughts and your shared experiences. So moving on, let's have a look at self-care. Now we're coming to the core of maybe what you've been waiting for, and that is our self-care. So self-care is is perhaps we can split it up in physical self-care and emotional self-care. Again, we're having physical stuff that's kind of visible, that things that we do with our bodies, and emotional is stuff that we do more internally. So what are the physical activities that are going to help us get good, solid mental health? And I think we've spoken about sleep before. If getting sleep might sound so trivial, but it is incredibly important. When I say enough sleep, we're talking about as an adult, at least 8 hours and uninterrupted, because we have that deep sleep. This is where the regeneration takes place. So sleeping in a comfortable bed, not eating a heavy meal 2-3 hours before going to bed, not smoking, not drinking before a couple of hours before going to bed. These are the kind of things that we need to think about. Off the phone, the blue screen is a stimulant, so it will make it difficult to fall asleep if you're on your phone before going to bed. So just to bear those things in mind, read a book or something like that if that's what you like doing. And most of the things I'm showing you now, in fact, all of the things I'm showing you now are free of charge. Walking in daylight. So a walk, 15 minutes is really good, getting our endorphins going and dopamine going, all that stuff. And in daylight, the UV encourages the production of vitamin D, which is a mood enhancer. So small things like this make a huge difference. A lot of my clients tell me, I've started walking and it's made a really big difference. You might be really busy and you think, oh God, there's no way I can take a break because this needs to be done. I've got a deadline, etc. But if we think about that stressful brain, that's kind of like, can't focus properly anymore because we're so stressed. We can't process information anymore. We're just getting into a red zone. If you take a mini break, and when I say mini, 2-3 minutes sometimes, 5 minutes, get up from your desk or from whatever you're doing, get yourself a drink, just sit there, close your eyes, and just try and calm down. We will be doing a mindfulness exercise at the end. Try and do that to bring your stress levels down. When you do that, your stress levels and the hormones come down a bit, and then you go back to your task, and you might find that you're much better able to focus, and you don't feel quite so tired. You're just able to make connections and strategize better and stuff like that. Not to be underestimated. Volunteering. Now, that's one of the things the WHO lists as part of having good mental health. Contributing to our community. Humans, we are social beings. Contributing to our community is incredibly important for our well-being. It feels so good to help others. This isn't just a coincidence. It is because we're connecting to others in a meaningful way and we're helping them. And by helping them, we're helping ourselves. Make or listen to music. Either you play an instrument yourself, listen to it, dance, have fun, even if it's just in your room. It's not about doing the kind of the newest moves and looking slick, and no, that's what you enjoy too, of course. Go and do salsa, and azonto, whatever. But it's really about just getting the body to move and shake out and dance without thinking and fearing judgment. Draw for fun. Draw with your left hand or the hand that you don't normally use. So it's just squiggles and whatevers. We're not looking for masterpieces. We're just looking for just getting stuff out of our system. And then put in a regular digital detox day. I was showing this to Celestial just before our meeting started, and she said, can we really do that? And we can. I mean, we survived for thousands of years without digital stuff, right? So we don't need it for our survival. If you are able to, on the weekends, try and put in days, hours where your phone just isn't, you don't have it on you, it's off, it's gone. If you need to be in touch, people need to know, like you've got kids or, sickly parents or something, if you need to be contactable, tell them, I'm going to be off, contact that person in case there's an emergency, all right? But digital detox is very important. I know that from myself. And I put it away. I will reach for it at least 5, 6 times because, oh, let me Google that. Oh, what's that actor? Or how do I cook that? Or, what's on the news? All that stuff. Now, if you just say, oh, no, I'm not going to do that, you're still okay, right? We are going to be able to just carry on with our lives. So putting that intentionality in there. So now we move on to our emotional self-care.
Hello, Daniela.
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat.
Yes, dear.
Do you mind taking it before you go on? Okay, so
No, of course
Mrs.
not.
Okay, so our VP wants to find out what can organizations do to help employees with mental health issues. And the second part is, can you share your thoughts on organizations having counseling support for their employees?
Okay. So the first one, I think this will not be, I think I won't be able to give you a comprehensive answer to that because there are quite a few things that we need to take into consideration when we're thinking about how to help people in our organizations, get good or maintain good mental health. I think I mentioned before, I have a whole workshop on that, understanding mental health. There's also only so much we can do, and we have to understand we need to then refer them on. So I'm happy to have a conversation separately about that, but I'm not sure I'll be able to give a comprehensive one here. And the second question, please refresh my memory, was about.
Can you share your thoughts on organizations having counseling support for their employees?
Yes. So there are things called employee assisted programs, EAPs. You may have heard of them. These are companies that provide those services into companies. And it's usually a range of services. Counseling is just one of them. Some of them might career counseling. Some might help with financial administration, just a range of services that will enhance an employee's well-being. A lot of my colleagues work in those areas. So you'll either be counseling people in the office, so they'll be in a dedicated office, or the company will pay for sessions to take place in a separate, in a different location, or maybe online. So if you'd like some recommendations, I believe Supreme Healthcare, there's a lady called Patience Osekre. She is doing great work. I'm happy to share that information. And a lot of South African companies are offering it also in Ghana. So EAPs, employee assisted programs, these are the things that help organizations help their employees. Is that okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Right, so emotional self-care. Let's start with my favorite, and I do this regularly, by the way. Go on a date with yourself regularly. This means you find something, or you remember something, or you either know it, or maybe you've even forgotten it because it's so long that you've done that. But go back to your childhood. What did you love doing? And do it at least once a week for a couple of hours. If you have children, try and get somebody to help look after them. This is about you and you, not you as a parent, or as a spouse, or as a worker. This is you. And you're just doing something. I mean, for me, the beach works. I go to the beach regularly, just sit there, and the fresh air and the peace and the beauty of the nature. Go on a walk, sit in a cafe on a Saturday morning, just by yourself. These kind of things help us to connect to ourselves. It helps us to put us at the center of what we really want to do. So, if there is something you love doing, make sure it's in the diary. It goes into the diary, and you ring fence it. It doesn't get kicked out because it's just, that's just a date with myself. I can, just because I don't know, family might want to be driven here or you need to do that. Ring fence it, and you will find that you'll be looking forward to it all week, and then you go on that date, and you know those 1 or 2 hours, or as long as possible, those are yours. And you're just going to be you. You don't have to worry about pleasing anyone or putting anyone else's needs before yours. It's your needs, and that's it, full stop. The next thing that's very helpful in terms of emotional self-care, relaxation exercises such as mindfulness. It is the most effective stress reduction tool we know. I'm happy to share a link to a BBC article on a reporter who said she rewired her brain in 6 weeks using mindfulness. They were able to take an image of the part of the brain that deals with stress before the 6 weeks and after, and that part had shrunk considerably because her stress had reduced. So we can now evidence it, and we will be practicing that in a minute. So the realistic expectations, I think that goes back to the perfectionism. When we have these really, really high and unrealistic expectations of ourselves, it puts huge stress on us. So just saying, you know what, it's okay. I want to do the best, and I am going to do the best, but not at the expense of my health and my well-being. By the way, the realistic expectations, we can ask people to do that too, right? Say, when people have expectations on us that are unrealistic, we can also set a boundary and say, that's not a realistic expectation. I can't do that. So saying no, that's a whole different workshop again on assertive communication. But, setting realistic expectations can take a lot of stress off us. Resolve deeper lying emotional issues. This is, I think we're going back to our emotional stresses, going back to, I believe it was Sarah who shared about this deep trauma she experienced, that she might not be able to shift by herself. And then we just accept that, actually, we do need a bit of help from a mental health professional. This is a favorite of mine. Forgive yourself for making a mistake. Again, it might sound trivial, but how many of us, when we make a mistake, even the smallest, we kind of almost disintegrate. It's like, I've made a mistake. I'm a failure. This is the worst thing that could ever have happened, irrespective of how big that mistake is. I mean, we're not saying if a doctor makes a mistake and takes off the wrong leg, that's not a good mistake to make, okay? And I'm not sure he should forgive himself, but we're just talking about, I slipped up in a presentation, or I gave somebody the wrong information. We all make mistakes. There's not one human being who doesn't. And in fact, our learning process is through making mistakes, doing something wrong and learning how to do it the right way. So again, here, just bringing that onto your radar. If you beat yourself up about making a mistake, this is adding to your stresses. So allowing yourself to just say, it's a mistake. I'll try not to do it again. It wasn't great. I'm not celebrating it, but I don't have to feel like a failure just because that happened. Gratitude, feeling gratitude. Now, I feel that gratitude these days is a lot like I'm grateful for this, and we speak it, we say words, I'm grateful. We're not saying positive affirmations don't work, but gratitude is actually a feeling. It's a feeling of focusing on what we have rather than what we don't have. And it can be the simplest thing of, I'm grateful I woke up this morning. I'm grateful I have these people in my life. I'm grateful that I have a job. We can always be grateful for something. And so just feeling that gratitude, it can take a lot of stress off us as well, because when we're focused on what we don't have, this causes us stress. Journaling, a lot of my clients say journaling is very helpful for them. So you just pour your thoughts and feelings onto paper, and nobody needs to see it. You can even, if you want to, write a letter to somebody who's really hurt you, you could send them the letter, you can tear it up, you can burn it, but just getting that stuff out is helpful, is externalizing your pain. So before I move on to our mindfulness exercise, which is slightly challenging technically, but I think we've worked it out. Any thoughts on this, please? Do any of you already go on a date with yourself? You know, do you actually, make mistakes and feel really bad about it and now thinking, well, actually, you know what, maybe I can let that go? Any thoughts? Hi, Millicent.
Hi, good afternoon, Daniela.
Hi, Millicent.
Hi. So thank you. Mine
Good afternoon.
rather has good afternoon to you. Mine has to do with
Thank you.
my son in school and in the boarding house. So you talked about being a perfectionist, and it just ties into what he's going through lately. So I see my son.
I'm listening, Millicent. You were saying so he's developing some perfectionist tendencies in school, is he?
Yes, it actually it's from childhood, and sometimes I'm tempted to blame myself for raising him that way because I'm kind of also one. I have those traits. So he's in a boarding house and he wakes up and a roommate doesn't lay his bed and he's worried. He says, "Why didn't you lay your bed?" And the roommate says, "Oh, but I'm late. I'll do that later." He says, "No, you've got to do this." And so he gets frustrated because things are not going the way he expects them to go. Now he's a class prefect, a class secretary, and he feels that the class has to be as quiet as a library. And his and his classmates are like, "Ryan, this is not real. We can." He says, "Why can't you just all sit down and concentrate on your books?" And they say, "We can't. So I visited him the last time and he says, "Mom, I'm frustrated." So at a point he broke down, and so
sorry.
yeah, I got a bit worried, and I'm like, how do I handle this? Any thoughts? Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that, Millicent. And I think you were very honest there to also, allow yourself to take some, maybe it was a messaging, maybe you were questioning whether it had to do anything with your parenting. But I think the first thought that comes out for me is that he might have anxiety. So when we're anxious, we like everything, we like control. Because when we control, we feel that we are able to then ensure that nothing untoward is going to happen. So it does feel like he's got a bit of control issues going on there. He needs environment to be just tidy and clean. He wants everybody to be quiet. It's rather unhealthy expression of control and needing to control. And you see how he had that meltdown. You said he broke down. It will make him feel very, very unsafe if he can't maintain a certain level of order and control. So I would say maybe he should go and see, somebody to be able to talk about how he actually is actually feeling, and maybe being able to find healthier ways of dealing with his need for safety. And maybe also finding the cause of it, where, when did it start? How did it start? Why do you think that, how is it that you only feel safe when you have complete control over the environment? Because ultimately we have no control over anything, really, do we? We have to accept that at some point. But when we're anxious, it's very difficult for us to just accept that. It feels really scary. So, if you'd like to talk to me at the end of the session or contact me separately, we can talk about, getting him some help.
Thank you so much, Daniela. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Most welcome. Thank you too.
Please, we have the hand
Okay,
of
so you
Charity
take one
up.
more.
Charity, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good
Hi,
afternoon to all
Charity.
of us. Yes, I just wanted to add to
Hi.
my sister's point, Millicent, and want to say that if care
Yes.
is not taken when he marries, it becomes a challenge. I have similar situation. My husband, a perfectionist, and you can't stay with him for 2 months without any trouble. So if you're able to
Oh,
do
wow.
so, then they clap for you. So for me to stay with him for about 24 years, you can imagine what I've been through.
We're clapping for
But
you, Charity. We're clapping for you.
so, so at a point, I had to devise means of staying without trouble. Because anything we talk about it, you put this here, he has a challenge, you put it there. So I sat him down and said that we are growing. I mean, there are certain things kids are
Yeah.
in, you can't have things the way we used to have it. So you should just cool it down for us to take it.
Yeah.
He wasn't getting
Yeah.
it, but I devised means of ignoring some of the things to be able to stay with him and to
Yeah.
be able to have this
Wow.
mental
Well
and
done.
emotional
Yeah.
health. So
Sure.
I just want to add that he should be directed at this early stage. Otherwise, he gets married and it becomes a whole issue on its own. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Just that for his issue, it's directed towards his academics. He's just a
Okay,
high achiever.
okay,
Not so much of social life.
okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but Millicent, I'll challenge you a bit on that. He is trying to get his pupil, his as a prefect, he is trying to tell others they can't speak. So that does become a bit of a social thing. And I agree with Charity, that stuff gets worse the older you get, because it's based on probably anxiety. Charity, I think her husband as well, you know, it is something that helped him get through some kind of life that felt unsafe. So for him, everything to be like exactly the way, you know, it helps him. So at the bottom of it all is anxiety. So you know, I agree, Charity, that it will become better. Sorry, it will become worse. And as a father and as a husband, then the family will feel it. When we have bad mental health around us, we will be affected by it. We're social beings. We are going to adapt to our environment. So be very mindful of the environments you put yourself in, because you will be taking that on. If it's an environment with bad mental health, it's going to rub off on you. If it's an environment with good mental health, it will rub off on you. So just as an aside, I'd love to take another question, but I feel that we're already at 2:24, so I think we're running a bit late. Celestial, guide me here.
Please, you can take the question, then we'll continue, please. It's interactive, so
All
you can
right.
take the question from
Okay.
Joseph.
Okay, great. All right. So let's the last question.
Okay.
Joseph. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I want to use myself as an example. I come from a home where when we were kids, it was all inclusive. I mean, we close from school, we organize the boys in the area, we all play football together, we eat together, we do everything together. So when we're growing up, we had this, I mean, you can accept anyone into your life where probably you can try to adjust when it comes to how we do our things. I'm looking at the perfectionism aspect of it. So, I mean, we grew up
Right.
realizing that people were also brought up in a specific way, like wanting to see everything in their way. I mean, people look at things in their perspective without not
Yeah.
necessarily looking at other people's perspective. This has become a major issue at workplaces where staff are having issues with their supervisors, with their bosses, and a whole lot. I mean, even in homes, you marry a wife, your wife wants you, the man, to see things in her perspective. And then you also think that maybe the way I was brought up, I mean, all inclusive. I mean, anyone can come in, we all play together, we accept people's perspective. So I want to find out, how do we bridge this gap? Because and nowadays we are even having more and more, I mean, people raising their child in a specific way. how they want their children to go. So I want to know, how do we, correlate, or how do we bridge this gap so that, we can all coexist in workplaces and others. So that's my question. Thank you.
Well, thanks for that, Joseph. I think this question raises quite a few things. So it's almost like, coming away from the more collective society that Ghana traditionally was to the more kind of Western nuclear kind of way of living, which I think is a huge topic. And I don't think we were going to be able to talk about that at length. Both, I think, have their pluses and minuses. But in terms of seeing things only from your point of view, so this is where empathy comes in. This is why we talk about emotional intelligence. Let's just stay at the workplace. Yeah, being an emotionally intelligent leader means you have empathy. And empathy, it means it's different than sympathy. Sympathy is that, I know you're hurting, and I know that pain, and I'm going to hurt with you. But empathy is understanding and accepting somebody's emotions, even if you don't understand them, even if you don't think that you would have those emotions, even if you don't think that's right, you accept them and validate them. So your wife wants you to see things your way, her way. Maybe you also want to see her to see things your way, right? So it's about having empathy for each other and understanding, okay, I want things my way, you want things your way. How do we compromise and find find a happy medium? Empathy is a superpower. It means we are showing the patience and kindness to someone, that their opinion, their emotions matter, and we accept them. Even if maybe we don't think that's right, and maybe if we don't think that they should be feeling that, they are. So with empathy, I think it really allows for healthy conversations to start, and finding that place where we can actually compromise. Obviously, for that, we have assertive communication. That's also really important for that. And that's another whole different area and another whole workshop. So thanks for that. I think in the workplace, empathy is very important. When we say to somebody, well, your performance has gone down, you've been late every day this week, blah, blah, what's wrong, and rather than taking that person to the side and into a meeting room or into a private space and saying, what's going on, right? What's happening that's making this, this kind of behavior start? So we're open, we're curious, we're accepting. I'm not saying being a pushover and accepting everything. I'm just saying we show acceptance of other people's emotions and their needs.
All right.
So
Thank you
thanks for
very
that,
much.
Joseph. Really appreciate
Yeah.
that. Thank you too. Thank you too. So now we're going to go on to this mindfulness sorry, where am I? There we go. Our mindfulness exercise. So being mindful, as we know in the English language, means to be aware of what you're doing in the very moment. And it has been developed into a relaxation exercise where that's precisely what we do. It takes us out of doing mode and into being mode. Now, we're brought up, in societies and ways and, ways of working, ways of schooling that's very focused on doing. And I need to be doing something all the time. Even if we are apparently not doing anything, we are still doing something. Our brain never just stops dead, right? But it's being about consciously not thinking, oh, I need to do the washing, I need to do that. It's about, I'm just going to be me. I'm just going to be me in this moment. And so, being mindful means it helps us to be present, not dwelling on the past, not dwelling on the future, but being right now, aware and living right in this moment. And so I have an exercise here, which, I'd encourage you to participate in. I will be sending this presentation out with my notes so that you have that as a guide, and also this link. It's going to take us to a YouTube a clip. It's an audio clip, and it's an 8-minute audio clip. If you can include this in your daily routine, you will start to see a difference in your stress levels. It's incredibly effective in reducing stress. I think I mentioned that from the BBC article, but I've been using it for years and it's really, really been helpful for me. So you reduce your stress levels, and when you practice it, when you get into a stressful situation, you can also start using it and it will bring your stress levels down. So I'm going to do a couple of technical things here that we practiced before, and if you can just bear with me for a minute or two, I'd be really grateful. Can everybody hear that, please?
Meditation 1.
No, Daniela, please can you stop sharing the presentation and let's go to the YouTube, please.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Can you see this now?
Yes, please.
Yes. All right. Okay, full screen. There we go. So everybody sitting comfortably. If you, the person will, it's a guided clip. So the person will be telling you how to sit and what to do. Just really remember the most important thing is if you find that your mind is wandering, just say, you know what, it's okay, and bring yourself back gently. Let's not have perfectionism here, like, oh, I can't do this perfectly, so this is really bad, and, start stressing out. It is to be expected that it's not going to be easy from the beginning, but the more you practice it, the easier it will become. So I'm just going to press on this and let it play.
Mindfulness of body and breath. This is a short meditation designed to settle and ground yourself in the present moment. So finding a comfortable position, either lying on a mat or a thick rug, or sitting on a firm, straight-backed chair or a cushion or meditation stool. If you're sitting on a chair, allowing your feet to be flat on the floor with your legs uncrossed, and allowing your spine to be straight so that your posture supports your intention to be awake and aware. So the posture can be dignified but comfortable, not stiff or tensed up. If you're lying down, allowing your legs to be uncrossed, with your feet falling away from each other and your arms lying alongside and slightly away from your body. Allowing your eyes to close if that feels comfortable, or lowering your gaze. And bringing your awareness to the sensations where the body is in contact with whatever is supporting you. Spending a few moments exploring these sensations. Now, gathering your attention and moving it to focus on your feet, so that the spotlight of attention takes in the physical sensations in both feet and ankles, any and all sensations, moment by moment. Noticing how sensations arise and dissolve in awareness. And if there are no sensations, simply registering a blank. This is perfectly fine. We're not trying to make sensations happen. We're simply paying attention to what is already here. Now expanding your attention to take in the lower legs, and then the knees, then the rest of the legs. So holding both legs now center stage in awareness. Now expanding attention again up the body to the pelvis and hips, the lower back, and the lower abdomen. And gradually expanding attention to move up the torso to the chest and the back, right up to the shoulders. Noticing all the physical sensations in this region of the body. Now expanding again to include the left arm, then the right arm, then the neck, and the face, and the head, until you're holding the whole body in awareness now. And seeing if it's possible to allow the sensations in the body to be just as they are, not trying to control anything, or wanting things to be different from how you find them. Now bringing your awareness to the center of the body, to the sensations in the abdomen, as the breath moves in and out of the body. Noticing the changing patterns of physical sensations here. If you like, you can place your hand here for a few breaths and feel the abdomen rising and falling. Being fully alive to the sensations of breathing, for the full duration of each in-breath and the full duration of each out-breath. Not trying to control the breath in any way at all, simply letting the breath breathe itself. Sooner or later, you'll probably find that the mind wanders away from the breath, to thinking, planning, remembering or daydreaming. When this happens, there's no need to criticize yourself. Simply registering where the mind had wandered to, then gently escorting your attention back to the breath. And this mind wandering may happen over and over again, so each time, remembering that the aim is simply to notice where the mind has been, then gently escorting your mind back to the breath. And using the stretches of silence now to practice this by yourself. Coming back to the breath whenever the mind wanders. And remembering that the breath is always available to you to help bring you back into the present moment when you find your mind scattered and dispersed by the rush and busyness of your life. Always here, as an anchor deep within you, a place of stillness and peace.
So how did you experience that? Anybody like to share how that felt? Maybe we can take one person to share.
That was a good one. I nearly fell asleep.
That's probably the real state of your, how you really feel. Your stress is perhaps keeping you going, but as the stress comes down, you're going to start to feel real tiredness. Wonderful. One more person, anybody else? How do they find that?
Hello, Daniela. Somebody said it was refreshing from the chat box.
Lovely, lovely. So this is that type of thing again. It's so simple. It's free. It's 8 minutes a day for your mental health. If you can do this every day, you will start to feel a difference in your stress levels. You will be building emotional resilience. You will be able to cope with stresses, the daily stresses, better. So I will be sending this round so that you can find it yourself on YouTube, and I would strongly encourage you to do that because it's been very helpful for me as well. So just to round off, because I realize we are really a bit over time, but it's been great with your contributions, and thank you so much for being so interactive. So just to give you a bit of an idea of the other stuff that I do, or the range of services I offer. So hello, sorry, can you hear me?
This afternoon.
Hello. Right. So anyway, just to continue. So I have an offer for the members of the IoD, 20% discount on your first 4 sessions. This is for the current members of the Institute of Directors in Ghana. And I've prepared a flyer that I believe Celestial will be sharing in the chat, and will also be sending out after the session. And just, it has my contact details. You could just get in touch for a free consultation. It's a 15-minute consultation to get an idea of what therapy is about, whether you feel it could help you, my fees, my availability, and all that kind of stuff. So I work with a compassionate approach to help clients understand themselves better, which leads to enhanced self-awareness. They are more able to self-regulate. So again, we're talking about, not reacting impatiently or fearfully, because we're able to regulate our emotions better. We'll feel more motivated. As stress reduces, we feel motivated and less procrastination. And our ability to have empathy, I think we're talking about that quite a bit today, is also enhanced because we are not so in survival mode. We're not worried about ourselves all the time. We have space. We can make space for others and their needs. So all sessions are held online using Zoom. And if you'd like more information, just get in touch. So I also offer a range of capacity building workshops. I think I've mentioned that. So here is a list of them: assertive communication, building confidence, increasing emotional intelligence, improving team performance. In this workshop, I focus on having open relationships amongst team members. Sometimes team performance is really impacted when team members are not on the same page. Navigating cross-cultural relationships, as in, somebody has to work with somebody from a different culture, maybe somebody even from a different tribe. This can bring challenges that are helpful to overcome in order to have good working relationships. Customer service training, it's one that's close to my heart. I feel, unfortunately, a lot of people who are in the industry they do not receive the necessary training. Understanding mental health. I mean, I spoke about that, I think, earlier as well. This is a sort of a mental health first aid kind of thing. Like if you have somebody who's not in a great place, understanding how it can come to that, and what you can do and what you can't do. It's really important to understand that you're not trained mental health professionals. So if you're trying to help in a way that's not going to really help the person, it could actually make them feel worse. There's a range of reasons why, but just also understanding the limitations there. Alleviating anxiety, anger management. So those two, fear and anger, these two powerful emotions we can be struggling with when we have chronic stress. And also how to meditate. Meditation is a bit different from mindfulness. It's longer and it's a real communion with yourself. I work with an Indian gentleman who works at the Art of Living. It's a global organization, and they have an office here. And they run regular courses, and so that would be how to meditate. A very, very important tool for also stress regulation and just to enhance our well-being. So yeah. I mean, here are my contact details, and get in touch if there's anything you'd like more information on, or some help with, or information on the workshops. I have delivered several of them into organizations and companies, so if you feel that would be of help for you in your field, just let me know. And that's it. Over to you, Celestial.
Thank you very much, Daniela, for this insightful session. So the flyer has been shared in the chat. We'll share it on the platforms as well. So I humbly welcome the President, Reverend Mrs. Angela Kaminapia, to give us the closing remarks for this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Celestial. All too soon, we have come to the end of this very interesting conversation. As we conclude this afternoon's session, I am deeply touched by the candor, the wisdom, the nuggets shared, and the commitment of each of you that has brought to this conversation to help the discussion on mental health and emotional self-care. We have heard powerful insights, personal testimonies, and we've heard also about certain boundaries, practicing mindfulness, and seeking support, leading with empathy, some call it vulnerability, to prove that true strength doesn't lie in self-awareness, not just in endurance. True strength is in being self-aware, which is a part of emotional intelligence. And for those of us in leadership, carrying our emotional well-being isn't personal. It's a rippling effect that shapes organizational culture, that impacts productivity and innovation. I pray that we leave here with a pledge to normalize self-care in leadership and to check in on our peers without judgment, to model the balance that we wish to see in our teams. Let us also be mindful that small, consistent steps, whether through delegation, reflection, meditation, whatever it is, or just to unplug in, which I do quite often, can also transform not just our lives, but the health of the entire ecosystem. On behalf of the Governing Council, management staff, and all of our members, I'd like to express deep appreciation to you. First, Daniela, our presenter, also to our moderator, and to all in the back office including our IT team, for making this dialogue so meaningful and worthwhile. May we carry these lessons forward intentionally and deliberately, not as afterthoughts, but as the cornerstone of how we lead ourselves and others. Until we meet again for another empowerment session, I wish each of you resilience and renewal as we sharpen our professional souls together towards sustainable growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And thank you, everyone on the call, council members. And thank you, Daniela, so much for this insightful session. So, like we said earlier, we'll share the flyer on the platform, and Daniela is giving members a 20% discount for the first 4 sessions. So that is a plus for being IoD member. So those of us on the call who are not members, kindly contact IoD to become a member and enjoy this package. On this note, a good afternoon to everybody till we meet for the next session. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. We're grateful.
Thank you, Daniela. God bless you.